Good day, my beautiful people. I'm sorry about yesterday. I went a little overboard with my 15 minutes of talking. Hope I didn't bore you all. Uh, I guess I could speak more than I actually thought. I thought I was someone who was more reserved, and here I am ranting again. So let's just cut to the chase. Yesterday we spoke about neural pathways. Today we're going to talk more about neurotransmitters, what they are, the essential neurotransmitters, and how they affect or why they're important to the body. And don't forget, tomorrow we're going to be talking about one specific neurological disorder that I will pick at random. So what do we know already about the neurotransmitters? Basically, in the brain, they are made of gray matter, and they are a shorter neural pathway as well. So let's see what the definition of neurotransmitter is. So Google defines a neurotransmitter as a chemical substance that is released at the end of a nerve fiber by the arrival of a nerve impulse, and by diffusing across the synapse or junction causes the transfer of the impulse to another nerve fiber, a muscle fiber, or some other structure. So in short, basically this is chemicals that are running through our body from one cell to another. Basically, the impulse transmits the information, whether it's muscle to muscle, nerve to nerve, cell to nerve, cell to muscle. Basically, it's the way our brain perceives the information and just transmits it through our spinal cord and through our muscles and organs. They coordinate. Neurotransmitters also coordinate our behavior by stimulating an action or inhibiting an impulse. So the 8 known neurotransmitters that we have in our body are adrenaline, so that's epinephrine, noradrenaline, which is also norepinephrine, dopamine, serotonin, GABA, acetylcholine, glutamate, and endorphins, which endorphins actually could also be considered as a hormone. Now, there's 2 types of neurotransmitters, which is our inhibitory neurotransmitters and our excitatory neurotransmitters. An inhibitory neurotransmitter basically does not excite the brain. It's basically our turning on signal to any messages in the body. Such neurotransmitters that are inhibitory are GABA, serotonin, dopamine, in which dopamine can be considered as both let me rephrase that. Dopamine can be considered both inhibitory or excitatory. Excitatory. What does excitatory mean? So an excitatory neurotransmitter basically means it excites the brain, basically turning off the signaling messages in our body, in our from basically in our body, and which neurotransmitters are considered excitatory neurotransmitters are, again, dopamine, epinephrine, so our adrenaline, norepinephrine, our noradrenaline, acetylcholine, histamine, and glutamate. Sorry, a little itch there. So let's define which each of these neurotransmitters are. So basically we have acetylcholine, which is, again, an excitatory neurotransmitter that triggers muscle contractions. It also controls our heartbeat. It is a stimulator for excreting certain hormones. In the central nervous system, its job consists of basically wakefulness, so being alert, attentive. It controls our anger, our aggression, sexuality, our thirst, and that's just to name a few. It has a whole bunch of other you could go on Google and just type in what functions does acetylcholine do. But basically what you have to understand is that acetylcholine is very important for the brain, for memory, for absorbing the information, for learning, for concentration. That's its main function. Aside from muscle contraction, its main function is also to keep the brain alert and focused. Another thing is that if you have, right, so if it controls your memory, if you have low acetylcholine, it could actually result to memory loss. So people that are very forgetful, you could think of low acetylcholine. Dopamine basically controls our movement and our posture. It is an important neurotransmitter for not only our mood, but plays a major role for positive reinforcement. So that's where we're going to get our pleasure reward. in the brain, positive reinforcements. Also controls, like I said, our brain and pleasure centers. So basically, people that are addicts, they tend to they tend to have less dopamine in the body. Um, or basically it's just unbalanced, right? So even high dopamine can trigger a dopamine want, a need. So basically you're wanting something more and more. Whereas if you have low dopamine, these are actually it could actually be considered as or lead to Parkinson's diseases. So again, like acetylcholine, dopamine is actually related to focus, learning, attention span, sleep, your mood, and if it's properly balanced, it actually helps boost your immune system. What's serotonin? So serotonin, as we all know, it's our feel-good hormone, our feel-good neurotransmitter, is predominantly in our GI tract. So I'm going to do a side note. If your gastrointestinal tract, so your GI tract, your intestines are malfunctioning or off, or your leaky gut, or anything going on with poor digestion in the gut, you can bet your butt that your serotonin is going to be off as well. So serotonin also contributes to regulating body temperature, sleep cycles, again, mood, well-being, happiness, your digestion, of course, and it is one of your markers of pain. So if your serotonin is low, you're gonna be more apt to having your pain receptors are gonna be more enhanced. Another thing about serotonin is that approximately 90% of the human's body serotonin is actually in the GI tract. So I said it was predominantly, well, there's 90% of it in your GI tract. And not only is it important that it just stored in your GI tract, it actually regulates your intestinal movements. Glutamate, one of our excitatory neurotransmitters. Really simple, it's important for learning, regulates development and creation of new nerve pathways. The only problem with glutamate is that in excess, it could be very toxic and can relate to neurological diseases. You could just be very toxic in the body, hard to excrete toxicity in the body as well, making it more stressful on the body, so elevating your cortisol stress levels. GABA, I actually like to use this to help me calm the nervous system, calm my body, and fall asleep better. So it's an inhibitory neurotransmitter that contributes mainly to motor control and visions. GABA also helps control anxiety. High levels of GABA help with focus, where low levels of GABA will increase your anxiety. GABA is actually the counterpart of glutamate. So you have, like insulin and cortisol, you always have opposing hormones. Well, for GABA, its neurotransmitter that opposes it is glutamate, in which 50% of the synapses that occur so our synapses, remember, is when the axon takes on the information and brings it to another cell body, another dendrite, to get the information through. So through the CNS, central nervous system, you have your 50% of glutamate, whereas only 5% in the central nervous system accounts for only serotonin. Norepinephrine now, like I said before, it could also be a hormone, an endorphin, as well as the norepinephrine is a hormone. So it contracts blood vessels, increases blood flow. Basically, your norepinephrine is like your fight or flight response. So norepinephrine and epinephrine are going to work hand in hand. When your adrenaline is up, right? So if our adrenaline is up, it's gonna be basically our fight or flight response, like I just mentioned. It's basically telling you that there's danger ahead, or that there's some kind of like, I'll take the example of a saber-toothed tiger is attacking you. Well, your norepinephrine is going to increasing your blood flow to your brain, giving you the extra attention span. and it actually increases your responsiveness. So you're gonna be more alert. You're gonna be better. You'll be able to see what's going on around you. Whereas it's gonna once your norepinephrine is up, it's gonna decrease your digestion as well. So the only problem with norepinephrine is that if your adrenaline is too high, your cortisol is spiked too high, and then if you're not able to drop down to normal levels, that's when it causes issues, and that's when we can say that cortisol is too spiked and you have cortisol dominance in the body. Another thing about norepinephrine, just moved this. Another thing about norepinephrine, it is actually very important to control our emotions, our learning, and our sleeping and dreaming patterns as well. Adrenaline or epinephrine now, it's seen again as a hormone. In some instances, neurons can secrete adrenaline as a neurotransmitter that increases the blood flow. So like your noradrenaline, it gives you a boost and a heightened awareness. Endorphins. So basically, endorphins, like hormones, it's pretty much like hormones. It's actually stored in the brain. It's not only in the brain, but specifically in the pituitary gland. And these endorphins interact with opiate receptors in the brain to reduce sensations. So your pain sensations, like I had mentioned before, your serotonin, so they kind of work hand in hand. So if your serotonin is off, you could actually think that, or basically, actually, if your endorphins are low, chances are your pain sensations are going to be up, making your serotonin drop as well. Endorphins also are associated with feelings of euphoria, boosting the immune system, and can modulate appetite and sex hormones. Another thing I forgot to mention about epinephrine is that it's very essential for the metabolism, attention span, your focus, stress, anger, panic, and excitement. Whereas if there's low levels of adrenaline, you're going to feel sluggish, you're going to feel anxious, you're going to have hypertension, lower immunity, you're going to have sleep disorders. So you want to watch out and keep your adrenaline at par. So basically, in all this, it's important to understand that neural pathways, the nervous system, the neurotransmitters, they all work in conjunction with our hormones. You can't have one without the other. It's like a cycle. So your neural pathways transmit the neurotransmitters. The neurotransmitters talk with your endocrine system, your hormones, and then vice versa. The hormones talk back with your neurotransmitters, and has a continuous cycle. Basically, it obviously is a little more complex than that. But we're not gonna get into hormones this mini series now. It is very rough. Last thing I wanted to mention. Sorry, I'm still a little off a bit from this morning. Workout kind of killed me. Sorry. So yeah. Basically, you could learn all this if you want. If you have any questions, you could obviously contact me. But I am doing a course this weekend coming up. It's going to be a 2-day course. I will go in complete detail of how the neurotransmitters work with the hormones, even how the neurotransmitters affect certain parts of the brain, how neurotransmitters are important for the neurological disorders as well. And don't forget that tomorrow I will be talking about a specific neurological disorder, and I'm not going to say which one. But if you guys are interested, you can message me. I will be hosting my course, my 2-day course at Cabalas. And it's gonna go a lot more into detail, even as far as how the brain was developed from birth and works our way up through the connections from the brain to the spinal cord and to our digestive tract as well. So stay tuned for tomorrow's mini series, 3rd part. I'm going to be giving you the protocol as well to how to help manage your neurological disorder. So until tomorrow, have a good day.